Happy Thursday to everyone. This is John McEntyre Money Show Live, prime time. I'm John McEntyre. And this evening we have a very important question I'm going to cover. But let's get into some wallet wins before we get started. And as usual, I want to give a quick update. Um, More and more people are receiving their assistance. Um, we want to make sure and have our thoughts, prayers for people in Florida. Some people actually were in the process of cleaning up from Helene, and then is it Milton? Hurricane Milton came through and undid a lot of work. Basically, what happened. Um, I know some of the people, some of you have seen some of the scenes where, boats. They were yachts that had washed up on land from Helene. They just basically tied them to trees so they wouldn't float away during Milton, and that was like crazy to me, to see that. But let's just keep them in the thoughts and prayers. And the people in North Carolina, they're actually uh, moving forward, receiving their assistance and help and everything that they need. And each day is small improvements. And so let's just make sure to keep them at top of mind. And um, also want to remind that help is still needed. Funding, all of it, everything like that. The seasons are changing now. It's actually here in North Carolina. We're going through a little cold spell. Um, so now it's gone from certain type of clothes over to like jackets, things like that for especially for kids, supplies, school supplies, things like that. So let's keep the little kiddos in mind also, and the teachers, also teachers in the classrooms. So we have a lot of things to think about here. So most people, they do something and then it sort of becomes news stale because so much news happens afterwards. Uh, but let's keep this one because this was a catastrophe, of large proportions that this part of the country just hadn't seen in 100 years. And so let's just remember that. All right, let's get into these other wallet wins. A good one. I got my wheel updated. That's good. I know one time, one before, I'm always reminded when I see something about a wheel updated about uh, the person that sent in a wallet win, where they said that some of the stuff they had actually sold off, it was still in the wheel, and one of the actual heirs had passed away, and that's how long they had been without looking at the wheel. So that is a wallet win. I just saved up my third month of living expenses. Big wallet win there. And I just made my last payment on a consolidation loan. Yeah. And that was because what was triggered, I triggered that one from the show I did a couple of nights ago talking about consolidation loans and what debt consolidation loans specifically. And that's what this one was. I just made off. So apparently they were very disciplined and they did do it the way it could be done. If you decided to go that route with doing debt consolidation loans and things like that. So there we go. Three good wallet wins, and also the people are receiving their support and they're making progress with this Helene situation. So let's get into this actual question. The question is, how long should I keep important documents? And that's a very good question, mainly because as your financial life gets more complicated, the more time goes by, and the older you get, the more things you're doing. You're making purchases, and just doing life. And money touches every area of life. So there's always documents every day. There, pretty much every day, you're probably picking up a new document, financial document, and so you have to sort of keep in mind of which ones to keep and for how long, because some documents are more important than others. Um, Talking with people, uh, we have to really stress how important some documents are, and they're just like left out in the open, or they're not protected. And so that's what this question. That's what makes this question so pertinent to today, and because we're seeing so much of that Um, a lot of people, they'll have very unimportant documents. They'll just have them, like neatly stacked away, neatly stacked. And then the more important ones, they're here, there, they're all over the place. And that's just not a good thing for those important documents. Um, Things like, identity theft happens that way, especially with the elderly. Especially with the elderly, that's usually someone it's easy to get their hands, or they haven't been to the mailbox in a while, and people are watching mailboxes, and they're stealing the mail and getting those documents and everything. So that's why this show is so important. And so what I wanted to do is just basically go over a quick list of the documents to keep and how long you should keep them. That's basically what I want to do. So let's just start with the short. We're going to start with the shorter term and go build up to the longer term documents. Basically, pretty much immediate type things you could dispose of. Sales receipts. Um, Keep them until either warranties expire, or you can no longer like return it or exchange it, unless it's a purchase that will be for business, and then that's for tax purposes. 3 years. That's when you keep those things for 3 years, um, either physically, copy in a folder, or scanned into a online folder or something like that. Something on your cloud, or on a hard drive. Um, I'll cover that more near the end of how you should store it, where it should be stored. But sales receipts, those are pretty much right then and there, unless it comes with a warranty, or like for instance, you have a receipt with Amazon, even though Amazon, because that's my bag, Amazon. They do have receipts. They do have what I do like about Amazon. They do the work for you. They let you know when is the last day you can return this, or exchange or something like that, and that's good to have that in place. So that is something to think about. But if you do go to a store and you receive a receipt physically, you want to keep it until those particular time frames have passed. Uh, some stores, they will ask you, if would you like the actual receipt emailed? Choose email or both, whatever they offer. Most of the time, if it's somewhere that I go, quite often, I'll just say yes. Just do all three. Give me one and send it to my email, just in case. And I bring them home, and if it's important, it will stay in a neat stack for a while, and then end of the month we go through them, and then we dispose of the unimportant receipts. So that's the very short term. 1 month or longer, the ATM printouts. Uh, some people, they throw them away once they made sure that everything has balanced out. All of the transactions have happened, um, and especially getting rid of ATM receipts. Make sure you get your ATM receipt, because a lot of times the ATM machine, it will spit it out, and there's been plenty of times I've been to an ATM machine and actually seen the balance of the person's bank account that was just in front of me. So remember that. You know, um, that falls into the hand of the right person. They might be able to make something happen with that receipt. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what all the scammers do, but from what I understand, they have the technology to do things. So make sure you get those receipts and at least dispose of them. The next 1 year, up to a year, paycheck stubs. Um, you can get those. You can get rid of those once you compare them to your W-2 and your annual Social Security statement. You can get rid of those. Utility bills, especially utility bills. Um, get rid of those 1 year, unless you're going to be using them for deductions like home offices, things like that. And anything that falls into tax, it would automatically fall over to 3 years. If it's going to be used for tax purposes, it will automatically default to 3 years. Cancel checks. If you write cancel checks, um, keep them, unless, and I mean, there's some snickering in the background behind the camera, but there are a lot of people, they said it was still like 30% of the population still write checks. So 30% across the America, that's millions. That's millions. Like I say, I mentioned that on the show, like standing in the line. Where were we? Hilton Head, I think we were. And the lady, we're in Walmart, busiest time. It's almost Labor Day, and the place is just packed. And the girl says, "Okay, that will be hundred and some odd dollars," and she whips out the checkbook, and everyone behind her is like, "Oh my God!" You can see all the same reaction, like, "Oh my goodness, she still uses checks." And some of the kids, "What's that? What is she doing?" You know, all of this, she write checks. Well, if they're canceled, keep them um, shredded or do something, unless it's for tax purposes. Default 3 years. Credit card receipts, those are very important. They have a lot of information on them. Tax purposes, 3 years. Uh, Other than that, 1 year. Just to make sure everything, because sometimes uh, credit card, if you use credit cards regularly, you're going to have an issue over the year. Everyone does. We all do. Just by the nature of using credit cards and just so many transactions and things. So you just want to make sure um, that everything is adding up. Then you can get rid of them, because it's usually easier to just look at them physically. You just have all of the statements and everything, than trying to find them on online or whatever. Just have them, then get rid of them unless it's for tax purposes. Uh, and also that goes for bank statements, your bank statements also. uh, Quarterly investment statements, very important documents, 1 year, because most investment companies, they have to have records of all of your statements also. So if you did get rid of them and you did need one, you will be able to get it. Quick phone call, verify who you are. They'll give you a document. If it's not online, they store, each company has their own timeline of how long they will store documents to where you can have access to them. Some a year, some multi years, whatever. And that depends on who you're dealing with. Now we go up to the next level. Time frame is 3 years. What to keep for 3 years? Income tax returns. I know you're surprised that I said tax right off the bat, but all the other documents pretty much adds up to the income tax returns. And because you have to keep in mind that you could be audited by the IRS for no reason up to 3 years after you filed a tax return. So, for instance, if you omit 25% of your gross income, that goes up to if you omit 25% of your income, that could go up to 6 years. They could come back and do an audit. And if you don't file a tax return at all, there's just no statute of limitation. So if you're not filing taxes, you have documents, just keep them until you do file taxes. Um, Next one, medical bills and canceled insurance policies. Make sure you hold on to those at least 3 years. Um, Records of selling houses, and mainly because of the documentation for capital gain tax. You have to keep those. Those, if you did lose them, you would be able to. You could call if you worked with a real estate office or an attorney. Attorney, it may cost you. That's like the last. That's like your last resort. It's just very important. You need them. You probably, you could go to the courthouse, do things like that. But say, for instance, you like needed, didn't have time to go to the courthouse, or you went online to pull it, wasn't able to pull it. I would call the real estate office, because real estate agents in most states, and you can check with your state. Like, for instance, we're in North Carolina, it's 10 years. So there's a good chance you call them, they'll have it. But records of selling houses, stock sales, same for the same reason, capital gain taxes. Make sure you want to hold on to those documents. Receipts, canceled checks, and other documents that support income or deduction on your tax return. Let's say, that's the 3-year rule. Or 2 years after the date the tax was paid, whichever is later. So just keep that in mind. Those are very important. and annual investment statements. Investment statements. Hold on to 3 years after you sell your investment. Just hold on to it. For what reason? Tax reasons. Tax reasons. So those are the 3 years. Now, then it jumps from like 3 to 7, and basically 7 years, uh, just satisfied loans. As you've paid off loans and you receive, your release of, release that you've satisfied the loan. Keep those in hand, just in case someone says that you didn't pay off a loan. Yes, I did, and here's my documentation. So you want to hold on to those at least 7 years. And also because of credit, most of the time credit is on for 7 years. And if something, say for instance, you go a long time and you haven't checked your credit, you check it and you're like, wait a minute, I paid that loan off 3 years ago. So before you contest it, make sure you have your satisfied loan, release of loans or anything like that, some documentation to prove it, because you contact them and say it. This is not like a quick process as it is. So make sure you're prepared up front with those types of documents, because it's like you make the contact and they say, okay, well, where's the documentation that you did satisfy law? Oh, well, I have to get that and all this. Okay, we'll get back to it. So you basically reset the clock. So what would have taken 2 weeks, if it takes you a few days to get the actual document, then the clock starts over then, because they're not going to be waiting for it. They won't be waiting for your call. It's just not how they roll. So um, make sure you keep those satisfied loan documents. Then there are documents what you hold them while active, while whatever is going on is active. There's contracts. Make sure you hold on to contracts, insurance documents, active policies, stock certificates, property records, stock records, pension and retirement plan documents. A very important one: property tax record disputed bills. Keep the bill until the dispute is resolved. Hold on to that. And home improvement records. Uh, Home improvement records, you've got certain levels of those. Like, you replace kitchen counter, redo some things like that, new sink, stuff like that. Hold on to that, because it is those are considered improvements. Then there's like home additions. Home additions is something different. That has to be recorded at the courthouse. That you actually modify the actual floor plan. So now it's no longer that old house that was recorded. It's pretty much a new like house. You have to almost like put that in your mind. Hey, we added that extra room on, or we closed in. When we bought the house, it was one of the older ranch style houses with the open carport. We closed it in, ran vents for air conditioning and heating and all of that. That's new square footage. So that's livable square footage now, living square footage, not just overall housing square footage. That's living square footage. And so that actually, um, you actually have to have permits and, contractors' records and all of this, and it has to be inspected. And if you didn't do that, uh, you could be in some serious trouble. And it happens a lot, especially in areas, smaller towns, rural areas where people are handy. They call themselves handy, and they do their own work. It's that weekend type thing. You're working on it slowly, and over a 6 month period, you went to Google. You've read all of the home improvement books and carpentry books. Got your neighbor who's pretty good with a skill saw, and you've built onto it, and now you're ready to sell the house 10 years later, and the maybe a real estate agent or an appraiser comes walking through, and they've pulled the the all of the records from the courthouse, and they're walking through and they say, okay, so we have a 3 bedroom thing. Well, no, actually this is a 4 bedroom. 4 bedroom, it says here. Okay, well, yeah, I added this on, so now it's a 4 bedroom. It should be more valuable. So now the inspectors are going to come out and tell you, tear all of that down, tear all of it. You have to do away with all of that, um, or you're going to have to sell it this way as is, but it's not as valuable as you think it is. and it happens a lot. Most of the time, they tell you, okay, you broke the law, so you have to do away with this, and then you have to go down. First, you're going to pay a penalty, then you have to decide, am I going to redo it, or am I just going to take it back to what it was? Most of the time, you've done so much work and damage, you have to like finish it. So now you have to get those permits. You have to get all of that. You have to bring in the right contractors, people that can actually do the work. They're licensed and bonded to do the work. They do the work. Then you have to have it inspected. And it is common, much more common than people think, especially whenever you're in the smaller towns or rural areas. You see it a lot. Probably 2 to 5% of home sales has that issue going on with it somewhere. Or you built that uh, nice little clubhouse in the backyard, and it has a lot of stuff that you're trying to make it part of the value of the home, like it's actually square footage of the home. And so the question will be, okay, well, where are the permits? Where is this, that, and the other? So all of that needs to be kept. And if you don't have those records, then the work wasn't done. That's basically how that will be treated. So that's a biggie. That's a real important one. Then there are the ones you just keep forever. Um, those marriage licenses, you definitely want to keep the marriage licenses. Birth certificates, wills, that also trusts, any of the other documents that goes into the estate planning, uh, death certificates, adoption papers, records of paid mortgages. You want to keep those forever. Paid off mortgage, passports, and those are the documents you want those in. And I talk about this a lot. Those go into a special fireproof, waterproof container or cabinet, something safe, preferably a thick safe, sturdy safe, waterproof, fireproof, because those are very important for your life. Most of the time, I add to that social security cards, because most of the time you don't need to walk around with those in your pocket. I've seen some situations. I remember the older generation, they used to keep their social security card in their wallet like their licenses. And I remember, like, my mom and dad, they had them metal plated. It was actually a metal plated, and I don't know, do they even still make those? But I remember my dad, he was fancy. His was like a I don't know if it was a bronze or a goldish looking card, but yeah, they were metal. And I remember um, him talking about it. Had been in his wallet so long it had flexed and it broken in half, and he had to get a new one. So I don't know. I'm like, I need to check that out if they even still make those. But yeah, I remember the metal ones. So it's not a good idea to have that in your pocket. That's easy. That's very important to be exposed like that. Your driver's license is enough. Credit cards, that's enough in your wallet just if you lost that. But if you lost a social security card, they have their hands on that. Ooh, that's serious. So that needs to go with that and only pull it out doing very important things and mostly identity records. That's the only time you're going to really use it. And if you don't have, or even more than that, you can take it to the bank, get a safety deposit box. So most banks, if you have a certain bank account or whatever, you get a safety deposit box. You have the use of one, so it wouldn't hurt to put the originals in a safety deposit box. That's where they're very safe. So that's a list of the documents you want to make sure you're holding on to them, and why, just how important they are. And so that takes me to the question of the day. um, do you have an organized document system? That's the question. Do you have an organized document system? This should tell you, okay, I need to separate these into different piles, and this goes into the safety deposit box or the safe. These ought to be held 3 years, 1 year, get rid of those 7 years. You know, so that was what I wanted to cover today because it's just that important. Especially we're going into the holiday season. A lot of stuff's coming through the mail. A lot of stuff, and the thieves and scammers, they're out on the hunt year round. They're out on the hunt. And if you have someone who's older in the family, just ask the question, hey, where are your documents, and get those filed away. So that's my show for the evening. If I gave some valuable information, subscribe to the channel, like it, share it. Share your wallet wins, your questions, your comments. Maybe time for your financial checkup, that no obligation financial checkup. We offer those. Look at the entire financial situation. And with that being said, tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow is Medicare Friday. Andrea, she will be on with me. We'll be talking about more Medicare as we lead up. We're close to, we're 5 days away from AEP. Um, so that's for Medicare to be able to disenroll in Medicare Advantage or your prescription drug plan. So that important date's coming up. And so we will be talking more about that tomorrow. So have a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same channel. Good night.